Hello world music students. This is your first lecture video for our textbook, Soundscapes. This lecture video is going to cover a couple of concepts from the introduction chapter that you find at the very beginning of the book. Now, this is before chapter 1 and introduces you to the idea that we're going to be studying throughout this textbook. The introduction chapter focuses on two main points. The first being the field of study called ethnomusicology. Ethnomusicology is an interesting field that has only been around for about a century and a half in the Western world. Ethnomusicology is all about blending the study of music, musicology, with the pursuits of anthropology, studying how cultures exist, how they interact with one another. Ethnomusicology has taken a number of pathways over the years. It started out by actually going out to the field and making recordings of music that was non-Western, such as Africa, Asia, Native American music, and Native South American music. That was the realm of the early ethnomusicologist. Moving forward through the 20th century, recordings started being used throughout the ethnomusicology realm. In modern days, it's not so much studying the music of a culture, because culture is so blended and transverse, much more than it was 150 years ago. The advent of global media, the internet, and relatively cheap international travel changed the way they worked. Most ethnomusicologists today study the music of a certain person or a very specific subset and how it interacts with a variety of cultures. Ethnomusicology is covered mainly at the beginning of the introductory chapter and its reference to Kumi-type singing. Kumi is a type of throat singing that is popular in Inner Mongolia and the Tuva region of Mongolia. There's a case study of Kumi and they track it throughout this introductory chapter. The other thing that the book attempts to introduce you to is the concept of the soundscape and why the text is called Soundscapes. What they try to do is weave a common thread throughout all the chapters in this book. 3 specific aspects of music that build a soundscape. The first is sound. Music is sound in silence. Tracking and identifying how sounds actually work. There's no way to get around that. Textures, forms, voices, instruments, rhythm, melodies, harmonies, and more. These establish the sound of any specific soundscape. Setting is also an important aspect of a soundscape. A setting is not just where a piece of music is performed, the venue, a concert hall or town square. The setting is also how the audience interacts with the music or musicians or vice versa. Do the audience members participate? Do they sit quietly and observe? Do the performers move out into the audience? These are the things that help to establish the setting. Settings is one of those things that is fluid and transverse in that it attempts to move around. And sound can change, depending on the setting. The final aspect of developing a soundscape is the idea of significance. What is the meaning behind music? Not just the meaning to us as observers or outsiders looking in, but what is the meaning to those who have lived with the music? Those who might interact with it on a daily basis. Who might have grown up with it, but are now seeking to change it and evolve it in some way. Significance is extremely important to the sound and setting as well, because certain sounds hold significance for cultures. For us in the West, especially in the United States with the blend of cultures we have, there may or may not, in your own home setting, be certain musical sounds that have a certain significance. As we're establishing a certain soundscape and we're looking through these chapters and case studies, we're looking at sound. The actual sound of the music. Setting. Where this music takes place and how the audience interacts with the performers. And significance. What is the meaning behind this particular style of music or the instruments and sounds that are being heard? The book does a great job of comparing soundscapes to seascapes. Because when you think about a seascape, a painting of the sea or ocean, it really represents a visual aspect of music. The setting can be different every time we look at the sea. There might be new waters that are out there, rolling in and out with the tide. It's a concept of music moving in and out of cultures. Also the fact that the sea can absorb a lot of things, and that really doesn't change. Music itself doesn't necessarily change when it takes other aspects into it. So, that is the introduction to your book, and it goes along with our introductory discussion where you are asked to record a sound mark. Sound mark is a little bit different than a soundscape, and they go into some detail there in the introduction chapter. A sound mark is something that is specific to you and to your own area where you live and interact with other people. Sound marks can or cannot sometimes have music involved. An environmental sound mark may be if you stood at a crowded street corner waiting for a light to change. That could be 30 seconds or more of an environmental sound mark. It's going to be different every time you come to it. So, one of the things you will do in your introductory discussion is recording a sound mark that is unique to your own daily routine. You have been provided an example, so take a listen to that to see what we're looking for. So, the introduction chapter is all about ethnomusicology and the soundscape. Sound, setting, and significance. I look forward to seeing your work this week. As always, send an email if you have any questions. Happy listening.